It's no secret that no-code platforms have experienced some significant growth over the past 5 years.
This startup just raised $10 million with an app built entirely without code.
Whilst these platforms started off with indie hackers and small-scale startups, it's now not uncommon to hear stories of million-dollar exits and enterprise adoption of these tools. Hi, I'm Adam, a no-code agency founder, top 1% Upwork developer, and an AI enthusiast. Today, I'll explore the boom of these no-code platforms and take you through the good and the bad that's come out of this. Whether you're a seasoned developer, entrepreneur, or just a tech hobbyist, I think no-code definitely has an impact on you. So first off, what is no-code? It's a pretty broad term, but essentially what no-code is these tools that use these visual, easy to understand interfaces to allow non-technical founders or anyone really to develop software applications. Some of the common names out there include Bubble, Webflow, Make.com, Zapier, Adalo, and the list really goes on. The purpose of these tools really is to make software development more accessible and easier to use by everybody. Now, you can imagine where the demand for these kind of tools came from. Traditionally, software development was something that a very small portion of society understood, and it took years of study to learn how to do it. Effectively, what this does is bars the barriers to entry for all of these startup founders or people with ideas that just haven't got the software skills. Software development is notorious for being really expensive and also taking forever to complete. There's a lot of horror stories that I hear all the time with relation to building your own custom software. But with the rise of these no-code solutions, the barriers to entry for software development have been reduced, and anyone with an idea and a few weeks to learn can now build and deploy their own application. Similar to the creation of the internet and just recently AI, you can see how this phenomenon gives rise to a whole new wave of entrepreneurs, hobbyists, and developers. But it's not without its trade-offs. The job of a software development is complex, and the reason for that is because there's a lot going on behind the scenes that really you can't learn in just the space of a few weeks. Key parts of software development, like your backends, your front ends, and your servers, DNS, domains, and hosting, design frameworks, and these kind of things, you can't learn these in just a few weeks. They're complex and really do take years to master. So how has no-code done it? Essentially what these tools do is they pull a rug over the more complex features of these apps setup and make assumptions on what you want with your app. Then they'll wrap all of these little widgets, for example, inputs, drop downs, cool checkout widgets and stuff like that into these nice drag and drop elements. But what they're really doing is actually just bundling up these packages of code into little drag and drop widgets that are easy for you to understand. Now, this is all well and good if you're not from a tech background, because they're taking care of a lot of things that you probably wouldn't be able to do without it. But if you're a developer, this is going to get really frustrating pretty quickly, because there's certain things that you'll want to do that just aren't available because the no-code framework doesn't allow you to actually access and modify that source code. Now, different no-code tools have different rules and limitations on what you can and can't modify within their frameworks. And it really comes down to how much of this do you want the no-code framework to take care of, or how much customization do you actually want to put on yourself? Now that you understand how these tools came to fruition and how they actually work behind the scenes, the next thing we're going to discuss is some of the front runners which we as an agency actually work with every day. At APG Software Solutions, we predominantly use Bubble for custom software development, and we use Make.com for process automation, which we found to really just be a more cost-effective solution to Zapier. These are two of the biggest no-code tools out there. And in this video, I'm going to focus more on Bubble because that's really where my specialty lies. Now, there's a number of no-code tools out there aimed to allow you to build custom software. Now, I've found Bubble to be the most customizable full stack no-code software development tool out there, but Webflow and Flutterflow are two other common tools, just to name a few. I'm definitely not suggesting that every app on this planet should be built on Bubble, but I do have a methodology on how I think the most successful MVPs should be launched, which I'll touch on once I explain Bubble in a bit more detail. Quickly to touch on what full stack means, it really means that within the Bubble framework, we have access to control the front end, the back end, and it also has its own standalone database. So it's really a one-stop shop to be able to create applications. It is one of the harder to learn no-code tools out there, and I think that's because in the spectrum of being really easy to learn but not very customizable, or being a bit more difficult to learn but with more customization, Bubble is a lot more down this end of the spectrum, but it means that I rarely hit barriers on complexity that I feel like I can't add within Bubble, especially because you can layer on your own custom code, both in the front and back end, if you hit any limitations with Bubble's built-in functions. To simply summarize the good and the bad of NoCode, I'm going to touch with Bubble more specifically, but these rules really apply to NoCode as a whole. So first up, we have the good. So one here is being accessibility and empowerment. I touched on it briefly before, but the rise of these NoCode tools has meant that you don't need to study for years and years to become a pro at software development, and startup founders and all these other people can now get access to the skills to build their own ideas and develop apps in a matter of weeks or months. Now with this comes speed and efficiency, and this is our main selling point as an agency. With these NoCode tools, we can build frameworks and develop MVPs in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. This is pretty game changing in software development, and it's pretty unheard of up until today. Now hand in hand in this is cost effectiveness. So because we can build these things a lot quicker and often with smaller and slimmer teams, we can build you an MVP in 4 to 8 weeks for often as little as $10,000 to $20,000. Now this is often a lot cheaper than you get at a traditional dev shop. Now the last one is prototyping and MVPs. Now this is a really big one, and the main thing that I see leading to failed startups, especially in the tech space, is they take too long to validate the market and get actual real user feedback from paying subscribers. I've heard all too many times about founders that have spent thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars building these products before they've even had one paying user give valuable feedback. The problem with this is founders can often get pretty obsessed with all these features that they think users will want, but you never actually know until you get paying users validate the product. With these no-code MVPs, we can ship you something in 4 to 8 weeks, allow you to push it to the market and actually get real user feedback to iterate on, and constantly develop your product to get something stable that users actually want. When we talk about the benefits of no-code, I think this is really the main benefit, is allowing to actually build a product for a cheap price that you can give to the market and actually get real feedback on, and some confirmation that users actually want this product. If I had to pull out the main benefit from these no-code solutions, I think that's it in a nutshell. But there's obviously another side to the coin when you build your MVP with no-code. Now the first one being scalability issues. And this really depends on the type of app that you're developing. But if you have a lot of back-end intensive workflows on your app, depending on which tool you build on, you might be paying a fair bit more in server usage than you would pay if you had this hosted somewhere else. In addition to that, which we touched on before, is limited flexibility. You're obviously building within a no-code framework, and depending on whether that framework allows you to add custom code or not, you could face some limitations in what is and isn't easily possible. The final one here, and probably the most serious out of all of them, is dependability on a platform. So some people refer to this as vendor lock-in, but depending on the no-code tool you use, they may not offer the source code for the app you're actually building. I know a lot of these no-code tools have pledged that if anything was ever to happen and the company was to go bust or something like that, they would release all the source code, but currently you can't actually access the source code and export it yourself if you wanted to. Now this is the main one that usually sets alarm bells off in founders' heads when they hear about this. It definitely is an issue, and it's probably the main thing holding back these no-code frameworks from mass adoption at this stage. Now, with all the pros and cons of software development in mind, what I'm going to do is give you my recommendation on the best way to build a tech product. At APG Software Solutions, we've delivered over 250 tech projects, and I've seen a recurring theme with the successful products post-launch. Now, as I mentioned before, I think the key difference between successful MVP products and failed ones is how quickly they can actually receive real user feedback from paying users. The reason I propose no-code tools is because you can achieve this in as little as $10,000 to $20,000 and in 4 to 8 weeks. What you can then do post that is get that valuable user feedback and iterate rapidly to make the changes within your application to make it a product or market fit. Now that you have this working product, which you've built rapidly, it's in the market, it's validated, and it's probably generating revenue, you have a lot of options on the next steps. The hardest part of software development is actually generating revenue. And if you can prove that with just $10,000 to $20,000 investment and 4 to 8 weeks, that's a lot quicker than most traditional methods, which probably take at least 4 or 5 times that in both cost and time frame. With that revenue, you can then assess whether it's worth migrating portions of your application to a custom tech stack. I've worked with companies with $1 million valuations that still are built on no code. But what I've found is a pretty common theme is these companies build on no code, then sometimes they migrate their back end off to a custom solution and still use Bubble as a really quick and easy to use front end. This helps tackle a lot of the scalability issues that can be hit with some of these no-code backends. If you find that your app does need a full custom solution, you still have this completely working version, which you can then give to any custom dev agency to build, and I think you'd find it's still probably cheaper than if you built it traditional from the start. Now, everyone's heard the story about how approximately 90% of startups fail, but underneath that, core stats that are relevant are 42% fail because it's not a proper market fit, another 29% fail because of cash flow issues. We're kind of killing two birds with one stone here, in that we can spend a lot less money and validate this market a lot quicker. So to wrap this up, the no-code approach to building apps is slowly taking up a larger portion of apps built out there today, but it does come with its own set of challenges and limitations. Whether you're technical or non-technical, or just starting out or a seasoned developer, no-code may or may not be a good decision for you in your app development. There's definitely space for no-code apps and MVPs, but there's also still a very large argument for traditional solutions. I think for a lot of people, a hybrid mix of these two could also be a viable approach. If you're someone that's curious about what's possible with no-code and AI, or you're interested in starting freelancing, definitely follow my channel because those are the things that I'll be talking about in the coming videos. Thank you very much for watching this video.